Welcome to the Sharpe Way show. Yes, it is 7 p.m. Eastern. That means you got to look at my handsome mug yet again. I am here trying to give you some serious entertainment. I'm not sure if I always do it, but man, am I trying. But if you care about stuff I'm talking about, and if it matters to you and you want to grow our media, then you need to do what I always tell you to do. Like, comment, share, don't stop. Like it. Comment, even if you want to say, hi, Larry, you're super handsome, which is true. Just say that or not, if you is fine, but just comment anyway and share it with your friends. They'll get tired of me, I hope. Maybe watch a couple things, be exciting, get those algorithms going. And before you know it, we've got a bazillion people. Is that a word? Is that a number? It is now. We'll have a bazillion people watching us and life will be good. So please like, comment, and share. And as I always say, follow me on Twitter and on Facebook and on YouTube. If you've got some extra cash, hey, you know what? Send it my way. Patreon.com/SharpeWay, and we can rock and roll. But I am very lucky today. I am very lucky today. I have with me someone who is an expert in a field that I'm not an expert in. Yes, that does exist. There's someone who actually is an expert in the field of Generation 4 and maybe even 3 nuclear technology. The man himself, Mark Schneider. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Mark Schneider is the president. Is that your title or CEO? What's your title?
President.
President of Gen 4 Nuclear. And the website at the bottom, gen4nuclear.com. Actually, I put it twice. You should not have two .coms, but one is enough. .com. And you can go ahead and go there to get more information on him. He's also an activist for nuclear power. And that is something that you don't hear much of. So let me ask you, Mark. You have something called, if I remember right, it's a nuclear Green Deal. Is that right?
I call it the Green Nuclear Deal.
I'm sorry, Green Nuclear Deal. Okay, I messed up. Sorry, the Green Nuclear Deal, and that I'm assuming that's not a Bernie thing. So help me out with that. Tell me what this is.
No, it's not. So the Green Nuclear Deal is basically the version of decarbonizing our energy production that will work and not bankrupt the world, right?
Oh, we don't have to bankrupt the world.
No, we don't. It starts with, and it's a 4-phase process. And the first phase is that we in the United States have the ability to build Generation 3 reactors.
Okay.
And these Generation 3 reactors are large-scale reactors. We've got 2 of them being built down in Georgia at Vogtle units 3 and 4. And we could build this, use that kind of a standardized design. There's like 20 licenses out there to build these. So we already have the ability to build them. So let's go ahead and start building those. In the meantime, we need to build a smaller version of these Generation 3 reactors. There's 2 companies that are getting licensed right now. Hold on,
but you're hitting a part that's bothering me already, right? You know I'm a libertarian, right? So I'm hearing government licensing and I'm already not happy. So I guess my biggest concern is I feel like, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, I feel like the biggest reason why we're not building nuclear reactors and nuclear power stations is because the government is stopping us, particularly the federal government. I believe that's true. When I ran for governor, part of my platform was to build 3 nuclear power plants in upstate New York, in an area in New York called North Country. And the idea was we have the space, we have actually state land. We could even use that if we wanted to, whatever we wanted to, and we could bring jobs and bring everything to that area. And there isn't that much NIMBY, right? Not in my backyard. In that area, people like YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. They are happy to have it in my backyard. Tell me if I'm wrong.
So you are correct, and you're also wrong at the same time. So there are certain states where they are preventing nuclear energy. Right, West Virginia is a prime example. Can't build nuclear unless there's a long-term repository, right? Okay. But if you go down to Florida at Turkey Point, they're licensed to build 2 of these reactors down just north of Miami at their facility there. There's a brand new facility in Levi that's on the Gulf Coast. So there's like 20 places that are already licensed to build these reactors.
Mhm.
So we're not, we're not asking for, when I ask that, when I start with that, it's using the existing government framework with what exists now. Now I understand that we want to, get the government out of the way in a lot of this stuff, and that is,
right.
Peeling back those regulations is
Sure.
huge. And when we get towards talking, the advanced generation 3 and getting into the generation 4, we're definitely talking about ripping apart those regulations.
But this is what I want to bring up. The most important piece you've talked about in the past, which I think is the most important piece, is the Gen 3, I assume, and also Gen 4, I know, there's a waste issue that almost goes away. Is that right? I mean, the idea of nuclear waste, there's, I guess, two fears that most people have. One is, it's going to be Chernobyl or Fukushima. And the other one is, what do we do with the waste? So let's cover the waste part. Isn't that a big issue? Aren't people scared of that waste?
People are scared of that waste. But here's the funny thing. I've spent time working in a commercial power plant. I can walk up to the casks that store that nuclear waste, and I can hug them and not get any radiation dose.
Okay.
So people don't know that it's not, I mean, literally you could drive up to these things, there's no real concern with it and a lot of it comes from the waste issues comes from the combination of The Simpsons and Hanford, right?
Okay.
So The Simpsons, they portray nuclear waste as this green goo, right?
Yes.
And in Hanford, the waste is from the weapons production from the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Got it.
Is stored as a liquid and is actually leaking into the Columbia River, right? And everyone's associate that with commercial nuclear waste.
Sure.
Commercial nuclear waste are these solid pellets that are about a half-inch in diameter and about a half-inch long, right? There's little cylinders.
Mm-hmm.
They're solid. That's the fuel that's contained inside all these solid rods that are an assembly that are about 1.5 by 1.5 in square.
But doesn't the new nuclear power plants, don't they actually use this as energy? Don't they actually? I mean, if I remember this, there's something like, and my numbers are going to be off, so you'll correct me, I'm sure. But it's something like less than 10% of the energy used in the traditional water-cooled nuclear power plant is used, and the rest is still there. Or help me flesh that horrible thing I just set out.
You're on the right track. Numbers are a little off, right? So of the fuel that's put into the reactor, less than 5% is used. Depending on less than 5%, depending on what your enrichment level is, that number varies, which means you have 90% of your energy remaining. And this goes to that regulation piece. One is in the United States, because of Jimmy Carter, we're not allowed to reprocess our waste. That's one problem. So I can't use my waste for fuel because it qualifies as reprocessing. And the other is I can't use what's called a fast spectrum reactor or a fast reactor, which would use that 95% of the remaining fuel. We use thermal reactors. So you have thermal and fast. Those are your two types.
I get you.
Right. And so we use the really inefficient design, which,
So hold on. The government regulation forces us to be inefficient. Oh, I'm shocked.
Oh, I know. Crazy.
I'm so surprised. So wait a minute. So a government regulation that was meant to be good so we don't, have waste problems actually stops us from recycling waste.
That's correct. Yeah. Two of them actually cause that.
Gotcha. I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
You're making me more libertarian every day. I love it. Yeah. Okay. I love it.
Well, and if you want to talk regulation, here is the ultimate in regulation. The nuclear industry, basically, because the fossil fuel industry has bought both the left and the right, and they are the ones who put the regulations in place. There are literally issues like there was a plant where the stapler in the main control room where they operate the reactor didn't match the color of the stapler in the simulator, and they received a fine for that because it wasn't the same conditions.
It wasn't that the color. If it's not red, I mean, come on, it doesn't work.
Exactly.
Or
they wouldn't, or the NRC wouldn't complete an audit because the carpet had worn out in the control room, and they needed to replace it. The NRC said, we will not complete our audit unrelated to the carpet until both the simulator and the main control room carpets have been replaced together. Like, we're Yeah, I mean, that's the level of detail and one thing that the nuclear industry has when it comes to regulation over every other power industry, they pay for their own regulators. I don't know if you knew that or not,
Oh, okay.
but every power plant, every nuclear power plant has two resident engineers.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're technically paid by the US Department of Energy, but the utility has to write a check to the Department of Energy for those people to be on site, to give them these speeding tickets, to fine them and do all that. And I mean, it's
so
the
I
only
pay
industry that has
to
that.
find me.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
And
I'd give them a very, I don't know if I'd give them a really high salary or low salary. Which one's better? I'm not really sure.
Well, I mean, it's a government rated salary, so they get.
Oh, so I can't even scam on that one. Either way, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, but here's the crazy thing is the nuclear industry put them out of business and they don't realize it.
Oh, so, no, I get it, because they're actually becoming so good, there's no need for them.
Yes.
Yes.
So back in 1979, after the 3 Mile accident, right, the worst, commercial or the only commercial nuclear accident in the United States.
Hold on, I want to bring that up real fast. That 3 Mile Island piece, I was in school when that happened, right? I'm old enough to remember it. I was in school when that happened. And the amount of backlash that nuclear power got from that in culture was insane. Literally, I was in school and we had a debate club. And we had to debate nuclear energy after that versus solar energy. I mean, it was that big of a deal. 1979, 1980. I know I'm old. I was in school. But yeah, so I was actually, we actually debates on this and such. It was a big deal. It affected, people thought, oh my God, now nuclear power is evil. And we were so afraid of it. And then movies that came out, and it was just, it messed with our psyche in America, I think worse than Chernobyl.
I would agree with that because it was on our soil.
Yes.
But here's the interesting thing. The risk to the public, what the worst radiation exposure that any member of the public received, so not plant workers, the worst that anyone received was 3.2 millirem of radiation.
That's not much.
For context, yeah, that's not that much at all. But for context for reviewers, that's equivalent to going to the dentist and getting one X-ray.
I didn't know it was that small.
Or 4 you normally get.
I only remember because I was in the military and I did some nuclear biological training, so I know that's not a lot. I didn't know it was that little. Wow, that's little.
Well, and then the largest single dose rate that a worker got during the accident time frame was 100 millirem. Now, in my work, just normal operating, right? So this is not accident conditions. I've received 39 in one day. Mm-hmm. So, accident, not that much.
I don't see a third arm growing out of your head.
No, I unfortunately don't.
That would be cool if you had one. That's true.
I mean, it'd be great. Yeah,
exactly.
Everyone needs an extra arm.
Absolutely, that would be great. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's funny. Yeah. All right, so I get what you're talking about with the fear and the waste.
Yeah,
I got that part. Go to Chernobyl now.
Oh, Chernobyl. Chernobyl is this. So the
HBO did a series on it.
Oh yeah. And Chernobyl was a terrible design without a containment building, right? So
but it was government run. That means it must be good.
Yeah. Government run. The government directed the test.
Yes.
4 other plants that had those reactors told the Soviet Union to go stuff it up their asses. And then at the site, the other 3 units told the KGB officer he can go shove it up his ass as well. And finally, they found one guy that was willing to do it. And the test was crazy what they were doing. Basically, it was they put themselves at an unusually low power level. They tripped their turbine to see if, as the turbine was coasting down, that it could continue to supply the reactor to keep all the systems operating while the emergency systems came online to prevent a meltdown.
So they were trying to see if they could prevent a meltdown, and they caused the meltdown.
Yeah.
Got it. This is brilliant. This is how it always works. I love this idea.
And do you know why they came up with that test?
No.
It was out of fear of the US attacking and taking out their switch yard.
Oh. Well, there we go.
So Yeah, so
let me go to that, right? The both cases, 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, there's meltdowns. Now, if my knowledge, and I'm bringing back my knowledge from when I ran for office 2 years ago, so it may be a little cloudy here, right? So correct me if I'm off on this. If I remember right, the newer technology, literally, it's physically impossible for a meltdown. Is that true?
So if you're talking the Generation 4, that is one of the design features that they put into Gen 4 is the ability to be safe for meltdown, whether it's, and we know we can do this. A Generation 1 reactor called EBR-2 built out in Idaho, they actually ran it through a Fukushima level test on crack.
Wow.
Right. So in Fukushima, the reactors were operating, and then they had the earthquake, they tripped offline. And then the tsunami washed out the emergency systems. There's something called residual heat, and it heated up, boiled the water, caused a hydrogen and oxygen to split. It caused the hydrogen explosions. At this reactor in Idaho, they took it at full power and turned off the cooling. And because of the design, in 5 minutes the reactor fully shut down. It established what they call a hot idle state. And it would have stayed there forever.
I love that.
Until they started back up.
I love that. So then let me ask then. This sounds like a great idea, right? Sounds good. You and I talking. Sounds awesome. Why aren't people doing this?
Well, you've talked about the fears of it, right?
Yep.
And we've talked waste. Yep. We've talked meltdowns. And the last one is weapons, right? Everyone's concerned about the proliferation. And this comes into the reason why that regulation about reprocessing fuel and fast reactors comes in.
So if we build a nuclear reactor in New York State, we might build nuclear weapons too?
That's what the fossil fuel industry wants you to believe.
Ah, okay.
But is it possible to take spent nuclear fuel and process it into a nuclear weapon? Yes, but that's probably, 500,000 times harder than building a specially designed reactor to make plutonium for weapons, which is what the reactors out in Hanford and down in South Carolina at the Savannah River site were. They were for weapons production, right? You make a weapons production reactor to make materials.
Okay.
Commercial power reactors don't make weapons materials well. In fact, they're the worst. It's the worst to use for weaponry. And because it's this weird blend, the plutonium's not right.
Okay.
And so it would actually cause your weapon to basically detonate just sitting there.
Oh, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah. Yes, so that's why we don't use it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So look, I got a couple of questions. Someone's talking about the difference between fission and fusion.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
Isn't even Gen 4? It's still fission, right?
Yes. Gen 4 is fission.
So why aren't we going, and Brian brings this up, he says, why aren't we going for fusion, right? Thorium, far less of a pollutant, why are we doing that?
All right, so there are groups working on fusion. The problem is that we've never been able to create a reaction. And I'm going to caveat this saying I'm not a fusion expert, I'm a fission expert.
Okay.
Right. So, and I'm all for pushing fusion. So I don't want everyone to think that I'm just trying to push them out. So
hold, let me stand that. So are you saying, and if you're not, tell me, are you saying nuclear energy, specifically Gen 4, do you think that is a permanent solution? Or do you think that is a stepping stone to fusion? Or do you think that's in addition to fusion? Where do you see this Gen 4 fitting in that plan?
So for fusion to work, you need fission because you need to produce materials that can only be done in fission reactors. So you're going to have some amount of fission no matter what with fusion. Now, when we talk in economies of scale here, if I stick to these thermal reactors that we use, we have about 1,000 years of energy available for us on the planet at 21,000 gigawatts of energy, which is the peak power they expect based on some models they've created. Right now, that's about 1/20th of that planetary wide. All right. If we go and we can use all the uranium, we now have 250,000 years. If we use thorium, like your comment, we're now at 1 million years. When you get into fusion, we're now in the realm of trillions of years. We have enough energy on the planet
Trillions
to
of
power
years.
the planet beyond the life of the sun.
Wow.
So that's, so it doesn't matter if it's not renewable.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
And so that's the mix of it. And the great thing in talking about that, can you, using a Gen 4 reactor that uses the waste, the US has about 10,000 years of energy mined, sitting either as a waste, sitting as a weapon, or sitting as depleted uranium. You were a Marine, right?
Yep. I know.
Right?
The
You use
rounds that come
depleted
out of the
uranium rounds,
Abrams.
right?
Yep.
Right? So that's the leftover waste product from the enrichment process to make it for nuclear fuel. Well, in a Gen 4 reactor, I can take that depleted uranium, put it into my Gen 4 reactor, converts it into plutonium, and then consumes it.
Is the consumption 100%? You're calling it green, but there is still some waste, right? I mean, it isn't 100%, right?
Correct. Now you're basically going to have about the same volume of waste of what you put in for fuel.
Okay.
Now, when you're talking about it, right, I've got my 20-ounce cup right here, appropriately atomic ale, right? If this was a glass of uranium that we mined, this would be enough to power my lifetime.
Wow.
Assuming we were using our current reactors.
Okay.
So now natural uranium, 0.7% of the natural uranium is the fuel we're going to use.
Okay.
So less than 1%. So I could power basically 130 people for their lifetime on this much uranium. And that's how much your waste would be.
Got it. Okay.
Right? So we're not talking a large quantity. And if we're using these reactors that can consume the waste instead of lasting, they talk about 100,000 years, which is all based on, again, plutonium, which is a fuel.
Right.
Right? The waste stream is now 300 years. And that's only about 5 to 10% of it. When I pull, if I took this, this chunk of, this glass of uranium, I stuck it in a reactor, I consume it all,
Yep.
I pull it out, we'll say this thing is 100 grams, right?
Okay.
60 grams of it is not radioactive. I can throw it away. I can remove
Throw it
it
away.
normal industrial.
Okay.
Yep, throw it away. 25% of it, they have uses in industry and in medical purposes.
You mean like
right?
chemotherapy and such?
Chemotherapy, not chemotherapy, radiotherapy.
Oh, okay.
Right? Radiation
Chemo,
therapy.
right. Sorry. Yes, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Radiation, not chemical, but
Yep.
right. So there's medical, and then there's something called radiography, which is done. So again, you were a Marine, right? They bring in these big
Basically mechanical X-rays.
The welds. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Absolutely.
there's things called technetium that are used in pipe coatings that are like great. So there's a lot of uses for the remaining 40 tons. So now we got 15 tons left. Well, if you break it up, there's an amount that's going to be.
But hold on one second. There's a lot of people doing radiography and medical issues and things like that. Where are they getting it now?
They get it from our test reactors out in Idaho.
Ah, okay.
So we
okay, that's where it comes now.
Yeah, we intentionally put materials in these test reactors, irradiate them to create those isotopes that then we can use. Well, if I could turn around and I could use it, make a Generation 4 reactor, I consume that material,
right,
and then I can extract out those isotopes that are generated from the fission process. Now I could create those same things recycling my waste from the Gen 4 reactor.
So you're recycling the waste from the Gen 4 reactor. The stuff that's not good, you just chuck in the garbage, so no worries. But I remember, isn't there some way? Where did I hear this? You're again, I'm going to say this. You're going to correct me. There's some way there's excess energy that comes out of a nuclear plant, right? And it just kind of goes off into nowhere right now, right? Isn't that how that works?
So every nuclear plant and basically most power plants are giant heat engines, right? And so
there we go. Thank you.
The max efficiency you can get is about 40%. So you're wasting somewhere between 60 and 65% of your energy. That's just how a heat engine works. It's just the thermodynamic process. But you could use that waste heat to, say, desalinate water, potentially in hydrogen production, in carbon capture technologies where you need actually heat to extract the CO2. You basically, and I dealt with this.
Okay, hold on. No. I want to cover those two separately. You're going too deep. I want to cover them separately.
Okay, sorry.
First, desalination. For those of you who don't know what that is, That's turning salt water into fresh water. That's what, for those of you who don't know what that means. That means turning salt water into fresh water. It's one of the biggest issues we have in undeveloped countries is getting fresh water. One of the biggest issues we have, and there's an old saying I remember when I used to do work with a couple of the charities that dealt with water, they would always say, if we have unlimited water, then we have unlimited energy. If we have unlimited energy, then we have unlimited water. So they're connected, right? Directly. That was the saying they always had.
Yes.
So you're telling me that if we're a nuclear power plant, Gen 4, 40% of that is naturally going to go into whatever the power grid is, and 60% of that could go into a desalination plant. So what are you going to make these on rivers? Is that, or make it in the ocean? How do you, in other words, how do you are you going to take the water and bring it to the plant? How does this work in reality?
So in reality, you have to have a cooling source for your power plants, right? And that's true if whatever your power plant is, you still have to have some level of cooling. And specifically as large scale, you use water for cooling. And one of the things is you see those giant cooling towers, right? That are the iconic shape, and all that stuff billowing out of that. Well, that's just steam, right? So if you ran seriously cooling coils in that, you could condense more of that steam, and the salt's going to remain in the basin of that cooling tower.
Ah, got it.
And
so
you can collect that. Yeah, that's all it is. It's distillation.
Got it. So, okay, now you go to some country, an undeveloped country, what they would call third world. They don't have regulations in a lot of those countries. Why aren't they building one of these? Why aren't the Chinese going into, I don't know, insert African country that's in trouble that the Chinese are already involved in, and saying, hey, we're going to build one of these Gen 4 desalination plants on the coast, and, because we can. And you're some warlord and we'll just bribe you, and you'll say yes.
The Chinese and the Russians are trying to do that now.
Oh, okay, good. So I was right. Okay, I love that. There we go. Yes. Because if I was Chinese or Russian, that's what I'd be doing. It makes total sense.
Yes.
So, all right. So by the way, I got the desalination piece. That makes sense to me. I like that part. Now go to the carbon capture piece.
Yeah, so with carbon capture, you use filters. And I was on submarines, and we actually used the same type of technology. And you basically run it through a filter, and then when you absorb the CO2 in this material, you have to heat it up to extract the CO2 out of it, right? So if I want to extract out of the air, so I run basically a big giant fan through this filter.
Is it just scrubbers that we use in submarines? We use in space. Just scrubbers, right?
Yep. And so then I just need a heat. Well, I can use the waste heat to heat that up to extract that carbon dioxide out of it to then be used in. I think there's a company that they want to do that, and they're actually no, they are doing. I was speaking with the communications director for Nuclear Engineering Institute out in Sweden. There's a company that actually they provide all the CO2 for Coca-Cola by doing that out in Sweden.
So then I don't have to use gas or oil.
No.
I just pull it out of the air.
Yep.
All right. So hold on. Let me see if I get this right. So you're telling me I just create this and it makes fuel from the air.
Well, this doesn't make, well, this is, it can. Yeah, you can make fuel from the air. Now there's an energy process to go into that. So you have to apply energy in the form of heat.
Right. But we have a nuclear Gen 4 reactor that's doing that for us.
Yep.
So now you're basically making gas out of nuclear energy. Am I right?
Yep. Yeah, you can do that. Or hydrogen and then.
Okay, now I totally know why nobody's doing this.
Yeah, because it basically puts the fossil.
No, not just that. This concept changes everything. It is the disruption that this creates is so much that people in charge are going to be afraid of it. There's so much disruption. I get that completely, which is why when I was running for governor, I said, we're just going to build 3 nuclear plants and let the government sue us. That was my entire plan because I didn't think that there's any way that I could actually get through anything. So I said, we're just going to build them. Any company that's got the balls to come to New York State and build nuclear plants, come on in. I got your back. Build them. And the federal government will sue us. And when they sue us, then people will go, oh, why are we stopping this? And then everything you're saying goes on CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, which right now it's not going on those three. But it will go on those three once we sue them, because it'll be a big lawsuit and it'll be sexy. Nuclear power, New York State's fighting the federal government. That'll be sexy, and that'll go online and people actually hear this stuff. Now, if you're telling me it can basically make this, are you saying I could literally put a small one of these in a house and heat my house with that? I'm asking this question. Could I?
No, no. So the space reactors, the ones that they're testing out in Nevada right now, they're about the size of a mini fridge, right? And they put out enough power to power 4 homes for about 20 years.
Because Court just asked that question. He said, till it's small enough and cheap enough and safe enough for me to put in my house, and it's just dumb. My ground-mounted solar array provides all the power we need. Keep paying those utilities. They will keep telling you what to say. I think that's his question, isn't it?
I think that's exactly his question. And here's the funny thing is that his solar panels are being paid for by all those other ratepayers, right? You know, he's getting free power on the backs of everyone else.
Look at you, Court.
Power.
Stealing, you thief. I'm kidding, Court. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Well, I mean, but solar panels are a form of welfare for the rich.
Okay. Tell me why.
Right?
I want to hear this.
It's the rich. Well, it's the rich and the wealthy that get these solar panels, and they're not, they get subsidized because the government says, hey, you can put these solar panels in, you get tax rates, you get tax incentives. It's not for everyday Joes. It's for the more wealthy people. Right? Now, granted, it's hit the upper middle, the upper middle class too. Right. So they get a benefit because they're, on the skirts with the wealthy, if you will.
So you tell me Court's a fat cat?
Yeah.
Court, you're a fat cat. That's what you are. Wealthy guy that you are. Okay. It's all good. Good for you, Court.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, hey, I'm all for people making money, right? I mean,
I love it. Yes.
And I'm all for using the rules of the government, right? Use the rules of the government for and against them, right? I don't care.
Absolutely.
Right? And I'm all for that.
I love it. Because Mark asks, so Tim asks a separate question. He's saying he wants a smaller in his backyard. I love the idea, right? And I do love the idea. It gives us more independence, but I see how hard this is. It really shakes up utilities, it shakes up fossil fuel companies, it shakes up the government. And the worst part is the government doesn't know what to do with this. And whenever the government doesn't know what to do, it always resorts to hit it with a stick. Right? Attack it, keep it down. That is the normal government reaction. I don't get it, hit it with a stick.
So something is interesting, and you may not know this, speaking of backyard, there's a company called Oklo. Now, Oklo, literally the pandemic hit, the next day they submitted their license to the NRC. It's a Gen 4 design.
There we go.
Submitted for licensing. Their Aurora is the name of their reactor. So they've done every other nuclear reactors, AP1000, BWX300, XC100, Aurora, right? And
they're marketing well.
It will fit on a 1/4 acre lot. 1.5 megawatts, doesn't need water because it's air cooled. It uses a supercritical carbon dioxide turbine. It uses everything's commercial off the shelf, things that already exist, except their power module itself. They have their fuel source already licensed for sourcing. They've got permission to use it, which comes back to EBR2. They're going to take the spent fuel from that. And then they've got a location to build their first one, also out in Idaho. But 1.5 megawatts is about 1,000 homes, or a large, or like a university.
Maybe one of Court's homes, because Court's rich, right? So maybe Court's got some.
Yeah, maybe one of Court's. So yeah,
maybe he can actually fill one of Court's multiple houses that he has. So right? Yes.
Or, and here's something that blew my mind when the cannabis people started coming to talk to me. They want this. This is a perfect size for cannabis grow facilities.
Absolutely. I thought the same thing. And irrigation, lighting, perfect. Absolutely.
It's lighting, and I have to think. My cousin, he owns a company called Athena. It's out in California. They do lights for grow facilities.
Yep.
And he was like, he literally, when we talk, he has to talk in. He talks in lights. I translate that to megawatts.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
Because we're speaking 2 different languages.
So
So yeah.
let me go to the other piece though. What about batteries? I mean, this to me seems like can you recharge batteries? I know, isn't there, don't we have nuclear batteries already or no?
Oh, we do have nuclear
We
batteries.
do. Okay. So
Yeah,
isn't this going to make
the
even
new
better
Mars
nuclear
rover.
batteries? I can put in my car. I could put in my now the grid goes down. Who cares? I got a battery in my basement to run my internet anyway. All those things, right or no?
You remember that waste we were talking about, and there was that
Yeah.
stuff that's going to last about 300 years. Well, we can create nuclear batteries that can use that as the material decays and releases that radiation. Radiation is just another word for energy.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could transform that energy into electrical energy, right, through there's different effects that can do that. I can basically take that waste that, it'd be about, 5 to 10 grams of waste, and I can use that to create a battery that's going to last for, it'll probably about 250 years. It might not be working so well, but imagine I got to swap this battery out when my great grandkids are dead.
So I got to put it in my will to tell my grandkids,
yeah,
swap the battery out. I got to tell, okay,
yeah.
right? I got July in 2300. Make sure you swap the battery out. Okay, I got you. All right. That good problem to have. Absolutely. Matt brings up the idea of desalinization, which I think is what we were talking about. To me, this seems like a non-profit just dream, right? That so many nonprofits are about fresh water, more community. If you could actually bring something like this to a local, I mean, this could be for well water, couldn't it? I mean, the amount of parasites we have, the amount of, getting dysentery and all these things. Could it solve all these problems?
Well, it could, and here's kind of the vision I look at it. Let's say you have a large scale, facility on the coast in Africa, and they may only have about at peak power demand during the day when everyone's up and awake and doing all that stuff, and in the evening, they're all watching their primetime TV because it's modern Africa now, right?
Right.
But they're using 20% of that for he was talking about filtration, which is all reverse osmosis is the official term for that. And you're running these reverse osmosis machines, and you can just, as power demand drops off, you can just add more and more of those online, so that you're generating your water. Your power plant pumps that water up to your irrigation fields. They could be 200 miles away. You've got pumps that can do that. And so you just, you may have a series of pumps, but basically your power plant is the hub. It's creating your water. Like you said, water is energy, energy is water.
Yep.
And that water goes to your people. It's fresh water. It's clean water. They can use it for, bathing, showering, irrigation, all that stuff. And, you could even do this in the desert. And so here's an example. Have you heard of the Palo Verde nuclear power station? This is old technology even.
I haven't, no.
So Palo Verde, until next year, it will hold the title of being the largest power plant in the U.S.
Okay.
Its heat sink, the source of water it uses for the cooling process for that 60 to 65% of its heat is the sewage from Phoenix.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that.
So it's treated, right? So the raw, all the sewage part. So you got this water that you would normally just dump into your, tributaries, and it may have some microbes in it. You may have to put chemicals in to prevent that. No, they just put it into these cooling systems, and they run it in there, and they just keep adding water from, and that's where they get their water to cool the plant from.
I love that. That's great. Brandon asks, are you familiar with Thorcon's plan to build gigawatt power plants on ships to power coastal cities using a mix of uranium and thorium?
Yes. Thorcon. So they're working with Indonesia actually to work on that process right now. And the idea, they're half gigawatt for each one. But the idea is they build the power plant, much like the academic Lomonosov, which is a Russian ship barge that is a nuclear power plant. And so you'd build this thing on a barge in a shipyard.
Okay.
And then let's say that you want to bring it to the African coast. You could bring it up basically everywhere on the coastline, or everywhere within 500 miles of the coastline could be powered by one of these. So until you're talking deep Sahara, you can use a Thorcon power module or a Thorcon power unit. And so you bring it in, and you basically bring it up a river, you park it into into you're right next to the coastal city or whatever. You just have to build your power infrastructure in there, build a pier, it can, operate it. And then let's say it's at its end of life, you can then pull the whole thing out of there, take it back for refurbishment, dismantling,
put another one in,
and put another one in. Yeah.
So I call up and go, hey, my nuclear power plant's broken. Can I get a loaner?
Yeah.
When they give you the loaner power plant, they take the other one back.
Yep.
All right. I wanted mine in red, not green, so I swap it out the color. I don't like it.
Well, and the Russians are doing this actually. They're not doing it with Thorcon uses and a little correction on what he said, because I'm a nuclear guy and we're very focused. The Thorcon power module is designed to use uranium-235, plutonium, or thorium, whatever the fuel source is. They are designed to use it. They're not focused on a specific type of fuel.
So another question is, assuming that all of a sudden, we could just do it, right? Today, the government goes, Mark, build us a Mark IV. Do it. Build us a Gen 4, build us one right now. How long is that going to take you? Assuming that you have all red tape's gone in this magical world that he brought up. There's no red tape. You could just build it.
So and I'm going to go back to Oklo again. They're going to break ground in 2022, expect to be online 2023.
1 year.
1 year.
Wow.
And that's because of their size.
Explain that.
Well, because they're 1.5 megawatts, right? By being so small, you're not dealing with large scale manufacturing. That's why these reactors, like you go to the Vogel project down at Vogel 3 and 4, have taken 8-9 years, is because they're so big.
But what if I want to build a big one, right? What if I want to build one? What if in my perfect world, right, I want to build 3 separate reactors in upstate New York, and while I'm building them, I'm building out separate grids that can't be knocked down with one shot, separate energy grids that can cover my entire state. And let's say, again, we're talking in this magical world, nothing's going to stop you. You could just build. Are we talking still 1 year? Or are we still talking 9 years?
For a large scale plan, if I had unlimited funds and I could cut through the red tape.
Yes.
Let's see here.
I'm talking magical world. I know I am, but just pretend.
Yeah, I know. I got you. I'm see here. We could build an aircraft carrier in 7 years, and that's from first cut of steel with everything involved. I could say we could do it in 3 easy.
3 years. That's not bad at all.
Yeah.
It's not bad. And if we are working on all 3 at the same time, we can get all 3 done online. And if we were building out a grid that would absorb that, right, that would be able to do that, a safe grid, it's not bad. Okay, so now you give me my plans for if I run again for governor, I got to come up with my plans.
So here's one of the things that's fascinating about these small reactors, right? Specifically, so there's the reactors are scaled into 3 groups. There's a large scale commercial reactors. There's modular reactors, which are like 50 to 300 megawatts. And then there's micro reactors, and this Oklo reactor is a micro reactor. So imagine New York City, right? Quarter acre. I could fit these things in the basement of a skyscraper.
Okay.
They're air cooled, right? Imagine if every skyscraper in New York City had its own, or even every building in New York City had its own little reactor in it, right? So it wouldn't matter if you had a grid.
No, I love the concept, because the reason why I like that, what you're saying so much is, it doesn't matter if the grid goes down. There is no grid to go down. I mean, there would be a grid still, but even if there was, it wouldn't matter, because if for example, look at New York City. New York City's got how many hundreds of skyscrapers, right? Tons of large buildings that could easily have their own mini reactor in them. If whatever is the grid went down by mistake or by attack or on purpose or cyber attack or whatever, we literally could simply ask those buildings to just turn up the charge for a bit, and each one of them could re-engage the grid and assist those next to it. Every city could assist those outside of it. We could actually have literally thousands of mini grids, all based off of smaller ones. I like the security of that, if that makes any sense, right? I'm looking at this at a macro level. And I remember it was 2003, we had the blackout in the East Coast. I mean, it just trashed us for I mean, if that wasn't done on purpose, wow, they should have been thinking about doing that on purpose,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's an industry event, by the way. They
There we
talked
go.
about that. It was, yeah, they had I think one unit had an issue, and it basically, the grid was so imbalanced that it basically tripped off 21 reactors
There we
all
go.
at once. So it was huge.
Tim wants to make maple syrup with his reactor.
Hey,
love
Tim,
it.
I would love it. I would
go.
come eat your atomic syrup.
I love it. So to talk about, what is an LFTR?
So an LFTR is a very specific kind of reactor. It's a molten salt reactor that's a lithium salt, and then it's a thorium powered, right? So I like the lifter. It's a good design. There's a couple of companies that are using it.
So the cool people call it a lifter?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Lifter. Cool people call it lifters. Sorry about that, Andrew. I called it an LFTR. I'm a noob. Lifter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But and it's one of those things where I have my preference.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at the Gen 4 designs, I go, if we can get them built, it's mine. Right.
Got it.
But I have, I mean, I have my preference. It's like anything, if you got a bunch of cars, I have the one that I want. But if that one's not available, I've got other options. I'll take one of the other options.
Absolutely. I think people are enjoying this. Janie says she's never had this conversation before. So it's working, my friend. Mark, you're doing it. Look at you go.
Well, thank you, Janie.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Absolutely. And people like this topic, right? Because Cuomo's Indian Point, Indian Point, where we're shutting down Indian Point in New York, right?
Yeah.
And people ask me about that.
It is shut down.
And aren't we like getting rid of it or tearing it apart or something coming up here or something like that?
So it is being shut down, and a company called Holtec International is going to do the job of decommissioning it. That's their big function, is they're doing. Now, Holtec, they're buying up all our old plants, and they're working. Now, here's something that's interesting. They're working through the government process, and they're trying to get licensed for an intermediate nuclear waste storage facility out in New Mexico.
Okay.
So you know about Yucca Mountain, right? Yucca Mountain was a long-term repository, and Barack Obama on like the 21st of January, 2009 said, all this effort that the utilities paid into this, because the utilities were the principal funders. Yeah, screw you. You guys, we're doing this great thing to try and store this waste in a place and be safe. And then by the way, the government got sued, which they should have. They lost the lawsuit. And so now the government has to pay the utilities to store the waste because they funded this thing that was supposed to be the storage for them, right? So,
government doing what it does best, messing up.
Yes, but what Holtec is doing is they want to build an intermediate facility. It's an above ground facility, which is how all the waste at the nuclear sites or the spent nuclear fuel is stored now. And they want to collect it all. Right? They can collect it all, and they can assume from the utilities the money paid from the government.
Of course.
They can store it. And if I was Holtec, I'm going, wait a minute. We've got these new Gen 4 reactors that are coming around. They're going to need fuel. And who has all the fuel? And we got
lots of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
That's what I would do.
So, but let me go to the other piece. I talked about disruption, right? Disruption, and Tony brings up a very important piece. People are afraid of losing jobs, right? Of course, people who are in this industry, they're gonna be worried, right? I mean, Hillary Clinton went to a coal country and said, we're gonna put you out of business, and they were like, we hate you, and they couldn't stand her for that. Aren't you kind of saying the same thing, Mark? Hey, we're gonna put you energy people out of business. Is Tony right or no?
Tony's not right. And
okay, tell me.
And so
Tony, you're full of crap. Tell him why, Mark.
Yeah, no, Tony, not full of crap. The concern is there. But, in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, when nuclear was at its rise, coal plants were being shut down, right? But what is the difference between a coal plant and a nuclear plant? Absolutely nothing other than the method in which I'm boiling my water.
Oh, right? I got you. Okay.
I need people to staff these things. And by the way, energy consumption goes up, not down. We all have our phones and our electronics. The average American energy consumption keeps going up, right? And then when you think about vertical, we talked about the cannabis. When you think about vertical farming, requires high quantities of energy. So I can bring more, if I could bring my fresh produce into a skyscraper into downtown Manhattan, right? And some guy could literally sell from the bottom fresh fruits and vegetables grown literally right there in the middle of the city. But we can't do that because we need energy from the sun because we're relying on it. But if we use grow lights and did all that, so I need more people, not less, for this. This kind of goes to the automated loom, way back, right? This is almost even pre-industrial revolution, when everyone was worried they were going to be put out because this automated loom could, make, cloth so much faster than the manual thing. Yep. And then when they were burning these things and shutting down the factories, and next thing you know, it drove the price of cloth down so low that that everyone wanted these things. Everyone wanted fabrics, and it caused a boom of jobs. And that's what I think would happen if we went this in the nuclear industry.
So this actually, I mean, you just gave to the next piece. This actually deals and actually helps with climate change tremendously.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a market way of dealing with climate change without having to worry about the Paris Accord or this accord or that accord. It wouldn't even matter, because once this became popular, just like your electrical, what kind of loom was that you said?
Yeah, the electrical what?
What the loom you said? What was that loom you said? Mechanical loom, whatever you just said? That was making the cloth?
The mechanical loom, yeah.
There we go.
Right.
When
automated.
Everyone will want one. So eventually everyone will have this, and you'll see without question the country and the planet will get greener. I mean, without default, that's going to kind of happen, isn't it?
Yeah, it will. And there's a great documentary I just watched called Juice the Movie. If you go to www.juicethemovie.com, I don't get any money for promoting it. I had a conversation, with the guy who created the movie. It's amazing. It explains, energy, and it talks about how these Paris Climate Accords. Mm-hmm. One of the things that's crazy about it is that, the wealthy first world countries saying, we did it the wrong way. You can't go coal, you can't go oil, you can't go natural gas. You have to go straight to the really expensive power that doesn't really work. We're going to still use our coal and all that stuff. But I'm sorry, Africa. I'm sorry, South America. I'm sorry, Asia. You have to do it. You can't have what we have. So we're going to force you to be in poverty.
Right.
But if we went to nuclear, right? Think about, the Thorcon was a great example. I take this Thorcon unit, build it in Indonesia. I go put it in Ghana, right? Now Ghana has 500 megawatts of reliable energy, which is probably more than they have for their grid.
Sure. I love what you're saying. I love this. And the other thing I love is when you said, actually growing vegetables in the city, right? That idea of building higher and putting layer upon layer of farmland, right?
Yeah.
Right. You're basically tiering your farmland in a city, which actually would allow for not having to drive the produce back and forth. Right.
Yeah,
and if you had that much energy, you could probably, in theory, even start to move towards factory grown meat, which again would mean less cows, less sheep, less. I mean, if you had that much energy, you could probably do that. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm seeing green everywhere. All right, I got a total off the wall question here, but maybe Michael's asking, what about artificial intelligence? Does that have anything to do with this? See, my worry is always, right? The Terminator is still a movie in my head, right? I'm never going to forget that, right? So now we're going to give AI and Skynet unlimited power. Are they now going to build out nuclear-powered Terminators to come kill us?
I haven't ever really thought of that.
Maybe I don't want to have that much energy after all, Mark. I don't know if I want Terminators coming after us. That's my worry, right? Because if you have that much power, that's also that much computing power.
Yeah. Well, and going
it's that too, right? I mean, you do multiply the computing power also.
Here's talking about computing power. One of the things that's fascinating with the computing power aspect is that data mining, specifically crypto, and then these data centers.
That's where I was going.
So here's something that's interesting. West Virginia, right? Anti-nuclear West Virginia. I actually got the opportunity to speak with the Speaker of House of Delegates. The Republicans in there are thinking nuclear energy for the future. And the reason for that is if West Virginia can build nuclear, because all the other states around it, they have these green energy requirements, but they don't want to build anything, right? If you look where West Virginia is, and if you look at where the internet traffic in the world is, we're on the internet right now.
Yeah, sure.
This is going through Loudoun County, Virginia right now, because 80% of all internet traffic in the United States goes through Loudoun County, Virginia.
I didn't know that.
Because so there's large quantities of data centers that are out. Loudoun County is just west of DC. Well, it's also just south of West Virginia. You could throw a couple large-scale nuclear reactors up there, right? And they could start powering that.
Absolutely.
If they don't, West Virginia doesn't have a green energy policy. All these wind and solar requirements, but and it's unreliable power. What's going to happen is West Virginia is going to be building new coal, new natural gas, new oil. They're going to build it all, and they're just going to be this super hub of energy that's the reliable energy. It may be fossil, maybe producing a lot of emissions, but because Pennsylvania can't build new, and Maryland and Ohio, they can't build any of that stuff, right? So West Virginia can.
Got it.
Where is all the energy? It's all right there. It's all around them.
Let me go to another question. This is an opinion question. Dustin brings up, should we stop using the term nuclear? Should we change back to something like atomic or something like that? Because as soon as people hear nuclear, Dustin's right, they get scared. They go, oh my God, I'm scared. Fukushima's going to get me. Chernobyl's going to get me, right? The Simpsons. Should we change the naming? Your view, your opinion. Is it a marketing problem calling it a green nuclear deal?
Well, I'm doing that because I'm stealing AOC's Green New Deal and
I like it
as well.
Yep.
So, and I don't think we can unbrand the term nuclear because that's what everyone calls it.
Got it.
And the reason why we shifted away from atomic to nuclear was because a branding decision was made to go away from atomic because they were known as atomic weapons.
Got it.
Right. And before we went to nuclear, they were atomic reactors. We already called them atomic, but we destroyed that.
Got it. So we already tried to rebrand and the rebrand failed.
Yeah. I wouldn't say the rebrand. No, the rebrand worked.
It's
just that the fossil companies went and they attacked it. Now, one of the things that attacked the branding, right? Larry, don't threaten my stakes. I love it.
Well, yeah, he's mad because we're gonna wind up having a factory made. Dustin, maybe the steaks in the factory made even better. You never know, right? You never know. Just look, it could be good.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we messed it up totally. Yes, but Wade brings up the idea that there's no profit in abundance, and I'm not sure that's true, but I see where Wade's going with it. Right? I guess his concept is, if it becomes so cheap and easy and everybody can have the energy, then who would want to pay for the energy, right? If Tim could really have, his nuclear reactor in his backyard and make his own, maple syrup and all those things, if that's really the future, if every building can have their own nuclear plant, in New York City, they could have it in their own building, who wants to pay for energy at that point? Is Wade's concern a real concern?
Well, I don't think it's a financial thing. I don't know if you ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
But I know a lot of stuff. He talks about the story of the island that they want fresh water brought in, and so they hire these two locals to do it because they want to keep it local, right? And the first guy goes and he buys a couple of buckets and he starts bringing water and he brings it Monday through Friday and he's making a huge profit margin. And then the other guy, brings in this company, builds a pipeline, drills a well, and he's bringing millions of gallons of water a day, and he's making a penny off of each gallon. The other guy's making dollars off of each gallon, right? But the other guy's making pennies and bringing extremely cheap water. And that's where you want to provide a large quantity of items for a very, very small profit margin.
Oh, gotcha. Sure.
So that way, that's competition.
Got it. Okay. No, and no matter what, right? Even if there are these nuclear, power plants in people's backyard, even if that is our future, I don't know if it is, but there will still be people who won't want one in their backyard and will still want to have a grid, right? Some will still want to be part of the grid, some won't. Right? Like some people want solar energy, some don't. And they'll still have to be upgradable. There'll be maintenance on them. And in the year 2300, we got to swap the battery out. So we've got that to every 200 years, you got to swap the battery out. So I think all that. But I think something else will happen. If you have that much power that an individual can have, I think the individual will find uses for it, right? We thought when the computer came out that now, since it's so easy, there'll be no work anymore because the computers will take away all the work. And we found that what happened was the reverse. The computers gave us so much more stuff to do. So I feel like this would also work. It would give us actually more things to do. I don't know. Am I off here?
I think you're right on. And the comment about nuclear is scary. It's a form of energy.
Yep.
And energy is dangerous, right? That's just true, right? If you think about it, if you're using coal, you're using fire. Fire is dangerous, right?
Sure.
And all nuclear energy it's a form of energy. And that's all we're using is we're just using a different thing. What makes nuclear different than all the others is of the radiation. You can't see it. You can't taste it. You can't feel it.
Right.
And so that's what makes it really scary. But when you understand it, it loses its fear.
Gotcha.
In a lot of ways.
So Mark, before we wrap this up, is there anything you want to bring up that we maybe didn't bring up?
Actually, there is one thing. I just literally, speaking of Thorcon, the CEO of Thorcon is mentioning, it was mentioning on LinkedIn about how doctors are super fearful of radiation and don't understand it well enough. So I have my own medical doctor story about doctors being fearful of radiation.
Tell me, please.
Where I live at down in southeastern Virginia has more nuclear reactors than anywhere else on the planet, and no one knows.
Because submarines.
Submarines. So you've got Surrey Power Station, you got the power plant.
It's Norfolk down there, right?
You have, you've got Naval Station Norfolk with half our aircraft carrier fleet. And some submarines.
See, Marine knows that. A Marine knows that.
Yes. You've got Norfolk Naval Shipyard, right, with its, with doing the maintenance. Then you have got Newport News Shipbuilding, which builds all of our aircraft carriers, decommissions, and overhauls them, as well as builds half our submarines.
I actually didn't know that was that area.
Yeah.
I always assumed that was in New England somewhere.
So New England is where the other half of the submarines are built.
Ah, that's okay. That I assume they were all built there. Thank you. Okay, good. So I wasn't crazy. Okay.
Yep. So
so there we go. So go ahead. Tell me more. Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah. So I go in and I had the opportunity to speak about it was at the children's hospital. My daughter has had some medical complications, and we were brought as an experts on a medical condition in front of what they call rare rounds. They have basically every doctor in the hospital in this room.
Okay.
And so we're talking about this, and my daughter had needed a CT scan, and I brought up the fact that I said, you're in the highest nuclear concentration area on planet Earth. You cannot use radiation as a scare tactic here because you're going to get someone like me who's going to tell you, give me the dose. You can give me a Grays, Sieverts, Milirem. I don't care. I'll do the conversions. I actually said that to a doctor, and he changed the subject quickly, and they actually pulled that from their requirements because the doctors were like, we probably need to know who our population is, because there are 30 to 40,000 people in southeastern Virginia that understand radiation,
right?
Because they work in the shipyards. They work.
Absolutely, it's their job. Every day they're dealing with it.
Yeah,
sure, makes sense. So I want to end it on Tony, who's saying he can't see the government allowing citizens to use personal reactors off grid, and I think there's a valid issue there, Tony, which is why I think we have to have executives, mayors, governors, presidents who will step up and say, let it go. Because remember, the executive is the one who enforces, right? They're the enforcers. And if the mayors go, look, do what you got to do. If the governors go, look, do what you got to do. It only takes one governor, to Mark's point. if West Virginia is the one that does it, the rest will eventually go, why aren't we doing it? What's going on? Eventually, I think it moves. It's just not overnight. I think it will take some time, and it will take some leadership at an executive level. Mark, am I wrong with this?
No, I think you're right. And I think a lot of it is sometimes just not enforcing the laws. Like, I think it's still illegal to take a bath in North Dakota with your boots on, but no one enforces that law. So feel free to go take a bath with your boots on.
No, I don't want to get caught.
Yeah. But I think to your point, let's just build it and get sued.
Yep.
And then someone goes, wait, why is New York willing to get sued?
Yes.
Over this? And like you said, then it gets everyone focused. And then, and a lot of it is that going first, right? The people who go first, and I am really excited, and this is probably my best plug at the end. I'm really excited for 2021.
Okay.
Because in 2021, Vogtle Unit 3 goes online. It's the first new build nuclear reactor in the U.S. since the 1970s.
Vogtle 3.
Vogtle 3. They're building 3 and 4.
Okay.
And Vogtle 3 goes online next year. Now they're behind schedule, they're over budget, but I don't care about any of that because it's the first time we built something in decades, right?
Sure.
We built a brand new aircraft carrier and it went 50% over budget and 2 years behind schedule. And literally the carrier right before it was like, they pulled it out of the dry dock and started landing modules for the new carrier. So there was no break in, building carriers and a brand new type. We have problems, right? That's just expected.
Right.
But I think once we get that, then we can pressure and maybe get, Dominion Energy to finish DC 2 and 3, same type of reactors, get Turkey Point, Florida Power and Light to build down at Turkey Point, to get Levi, to get the units in Alabama, out in Texas. I mean, we literally can't.
No, I agree. Someone's got to make that first step, right? I'm with you. Look, I'm a Marine. I'm first in. I don't mind. I'll go break a hole.
Yeah.
You guys got to follow me through, though. That's all. So, Mark, when I break a hole, you got to follow me through.
That's what we do, right? Now,
there we go.
We usually bring you, all the air cover for you. But
that's exactly right. 100%. Absolutely. Well, Mark, I want to say thank you so much for coming on this evening. It was great. People really enjoyed this. I appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for watching. It was amazing. For more information on what he's actually doing and to talk to him and to figure out what's going on with his company, head on over to Gen 4 Nuclear. That's Gen IV because he's super geekish with his Roman numerals. Gen 4 nuclear.com. I will see you guys all tomorrow.